Kirsten Landman is not your average sports star. She is a female hard enduro rider with her sights set on the 2020 Dakar Rally. Let's find out more about where her passion for bikes came from and how she is lucky to even be here today, as her journey took a near fatal turn in 2013.
Okay, so my garage, my pride and joy, probably where I spend most of my time. I've got all my trophies here. In the front row you can see I've got my Roof of Africa First Lady finishes 2014, 2015, 2018 and 2016, and then my most recent Pride and Joy, my Mazuga First Lady finisher, and then amongst others you've got Red Bull Braveman, I've got MP, I've got my National Enduro, I've got Red Bull. From far back as I can remember, I've liked motorbikes. I've had a passion for it, but it all started back when I was 8 years old. And my father made a bet with me and said, if you can make the Southern squad and you make the team, I'll buy you a motorbike, because I always had I had a KTM picture on my cupboard when I was a little girl of a little KTM SX50. Needless to say, I won the bet. Went into high school. I was very competitive in school with my school sports, playing hockey, athletics and swimming, so I didn't have too much time to concentrate on the motorbiking, but it was just a hobby then. And my parents supported me through it all. And then I left school and my parents said, you've got 1 year to make it, because we can't afford to support you anymore because it is quite expensive. The next year I got picked up by Bidvest Yamaha, where they looked after me for 2 years. And then I went to Roof of Africa in 2012. And I got a bronze finish. Not many people know that, but that was my first ever extreme event. And from there I got put onto the Brother Leader Trek KTM team, but at the time it was the Brother Broadlink KTM team. And I've been with them now for 7 years. And going into the next year, 2013, racing my first year on the KTM team, I had a very big life-changing event. When I was signed in with the KTM team, I was contracted to national enduros and off-roads. The Botswana Desert 1000 was one of the nationals, which is 2 days of racing, 500 kilometers on day one, 500 kilometers on day two. And I was riding to try to get past another rider in front of me. And that rider was in the left-hand lane and I was in the right-hand lane, and general rules of the road, keep left, pass right. So there was an S-bend coming up in front of me, and I thought, okay, cool, I'll come in a bit faster because I've been sitting behind this rider for quite a while now and I wanted to make a pass. And thinking that they were in the left lane, it would be too much effort for them to switch over into the right lane, and the S-bend being on the left-hand lane, you were on the inside, so I didn't think that they would switch over. So I came in fast. Next minute that rider hopped over into the right-hand lane, and I had to slam on brakes. And when you grab on front brakes on a motorbike, and then especially like a dome-shaped rut, I couldn't fall to the left because my front wheel had passed their back wheel and they were on the left-hand side of me. So I fell to the right, and just to the right of me was a tree stump about waist height. As it goes, I landed on the tree stump with my stomach with quite a bit of impact, and then I realized I couldn't get up, and some riders stopped behind me, which were really, really helpful. The pain wouldn't go away, so he stayed with me. He was a Zimbabwean, one of the Zimbabwean guys from the war, so he knew how to look after someone kind of going into shock. So he kept me awake the whole time, and obviously we had now notified medics back at the pits, and it was an hour and a half before they got to me. So my accident happened around 9 o'clock on the Friday morning, and at 11:30 only then did the medics get to me in a 4x4 Toyota, because I don't think they could find me. We could hear them going around back and forth trying to find me. But eventually they came to me, did vitals on me, because I didn't have anything physically wrong with me, so I didn't have anything hanging out my body. I seemed okay, so they thought that I had soft tissue damage. So put me in the back of the car. It took us about 45 minutes, an hour to get back to the pits, because we're now off-roading through the bushes, and also because I was in so much pain, every single bump that I hit I started vomiting. Eventually getting back to the pits, there were quite a few accidents that day, and because my accident didn't seem so critical, I was kind of like put on the back burner, and the guys that were more severe than me were sent off. And eventually we got in an ambulance and arrived at the Gaborone private hospital. So I spent the night in the hospital. They put me on a large dose of morphine, still not knowing what was wrong with me. Francisca, my boss at KTM, she had contact with Hein van der Walt at Unitas Hospital. He's a very good abdomen and stomach doctor, and she had his personal number, and she messaged him saying one of my athletes had had an accident, and she sent him through my blood test results as he requested. And he knew exactly what I had done from my blood test results. And he said, you need to get Kirsten home as soon as possible. And thank goodness for Discovery, private medical aid. They had to, I was too unstable to be driven because we didn't know what was going to happen along the way. So what Discovery do is they send in medics to see if I was critical enough to justify spending that money on a private jet. So the medics got in the next morning at about 10, and the whole time I was quite dosed up on morphine because of the pain. And the medics took one look at me and they knew straight away, Kirsten needs to be airlifted out of there. Then within half an hour I was in an ambulance on the way to Gaborone private in a jet, and I was flown back to Lanseria Airport. I got in at about 3:30, and then my doctor, Dr. Valkovits from Unitas, was pretty upset when I arrived, thinking it's been so long, she's got a burst small intestine and she hasn't been treated on. And then he was freaking out, so I started freaking out because I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had no idea. Now you're getting told that you don't know what's going to happen to you. So I said, well, can I at least say goodbye to my family? You don't think much. You don't think you're going to die, because it's not once did I ever think I was going to die, because I didn't really know what was wrong with me. I didn't think that at all, but gave our kisses, and then I was wheeled into the operating room, and before I could even remember from being taken off the normal bed onto the operating bed, I was out. I woke up 11 days later, and I had been put into an induced coma because when they opened me up, they had realized that I had severed my pancreas off my small intestine, and your small intestine being, your wastage carrier, that had all obviously now been exposed and in my abdomen. And at the times, the doctors didn't want to tell my family that all my organs had gone septic. They made a decision amongst themselves not to tell anyone, and there was a few days where it was really, I was kind of like touch and go, where they didn't know whether I would make it or not because my infection rate was so high. I was 1 minute I was okay, then next minute my infection rate would rocket high, and I was put onto life support because I was on so much morphine. My heart stopped beating. But 12 days later, I woke up and I was out of hospital a week after that, so I was in hospital for just over 2.5 weeks. My doctor, when I saw him for my last checkup, he said, how are you here today? I have no idea. And he said it makes him believe that there is a higher being, because one in 4 people survive with what I had, and that's with 8 hours. An hour was 36 hours without being treated. And then 6 weeks later, I experienced some complications from the operation. I woke up one night with the most severe stomach pains. What had happened is, because of the scar tissue around my small intestine, you form loops from the small intestine. Form loops from the scar tissue, and the bands kind of close. And because that had created another blockage in my small intestine, and the doctors tried everything, just because my stomach had just recovered from my cut, they didn't want to cut me open again. They thought we could try everything possible to get to pass the stool without having to cut you open. So I was in hospital for a week, fed liquids and tried everything humanly possible to pass the stool without having to cut into me. But a week later, or a week after I'd been there, I was going for x-rays to see where the blockage was, and on the way up in the lift, I just got this most excruciating wave of pain. I've never felt anything that sore in my life, and I just projectile vomited everywhere, and I was rushed back into my room. When I got there, my doctor was already waiting. He said, you've burst your small intestine again. So he said it won't be as bad this time because we're going to treat you straight away. So I was rushed straight into the operating room, back into high care for a few days after that, and then I was back home. So I had quite a bit of bad luck. People will be watching this video and thinking, why the heck are you still riding? But if I'm not riding, I'm not living. So this is my passion, and achieving goals and doing what I've done and what I'm about to do is me living life to the fullest. So in my eyes, it was a blessing in disguise.
To keep up with Kirsten and more on the power tools that won't quit, follow Ryobi Africa on social media.